Yeah.
I'm joined by Ollie Moran, former All Star with Limerick, to talk about the All Ireland semi final between Limerick and Galway. Ollie, first off, are you impressed with how Limerick have looked during this season? Collecting the league title after beating Clare in that first round of Munster, going on to batter Tipperary in the semi final, and then holding off what was a fairly good challenge from Waterford in the Munster final.
Yeah, well, look, I suppose they've been emphatic is the one word that people have bandied about. You can't argue with their form today. They've beaten everyone who's coming their way. In some cases, they've been very, very impressive. Even early doors in the league this year before the shutdown, I think there was definitely a hunger about Limerick, and there was serious intent in how they were hurling, and they definitely picked off or seemed to have picked up from the Kilkenny perform. Like, I didn't say it wasn't a poor performance against Kilkenny. It's just maybe they left themselves too much work to do. But certainly, all the energy and momentum this year has been really about, I suppose, redeeming themselves in one sense and getting back to where they felt they should have been maybe last year. But no, up to now, I think very impressive league performances. Very, very good against Clare. Second half, you could probably argue, extremely emphatic against Tipperary. And, came through a very, very difficult challenge, to be fair, against Waterford. I think Waterford asked serious questions of them. And I think they had to ground it out. And that's maybe the first time this year that they've really had to dig deep. But look, they're at the business end of the year, but that's they're around long enough to know as well that this is where they came unstuck last year. So I think there'll be extra renewed energy with the view to certainly redeeming the I suppose the defeat against Kilkenny last year.
When I look at Limerick, I struggle to see what the weaknesses might be, because you took out two-thirds of the full back line and they've just rolled on as if it doesn't matter. You take out, you take Kyle Hayes from the half forward line, put him wing back, no problem. Put Keane Lynch centre forward, no problem. Yeah, and so many good subs as well. Do you see many weaknesses with this team?
Well, obviously, as Limerick man, you're not going to say that they're weak here, there, and everywhere. Look, I don't see any weaknesses per se. I think, without a shadow of a doubt, it's certainly been the strongest Limerick team that I've seen in my lifetime. I can't recall it, the early 70s. And only would have had a strong team days. But like this team, if you go through it, I'm not going to go through them all one by one now, but very strong goalkeeper. I would say the back unit collectively is very, very strong. They're all able to hurl, and I think the system allows for backs to defend in packs. I suppose the one, just to digress slightly, hurling nowadays, especially at the back, there seems to be less man on man defending. Like, you'd probably argue that Sean Finn is the only out and out defender, the only out and out man marker. You'd argue midfield, as you said. Keane Hayes is alternating, Keane Lynch is alternating between centre field and centre forward to very good effect. And their forward unit, any one of them on their day can be a game changer. I suppose, look, you made reference there to the fact that two of your mainstays in the full back line have been ruled out with injury, Richie English and Mike Casey. Now, I know Richie English may be available on Sunday, was certainly available for the Munster final, and is coming back to full fitness. So I suppose, look, that's the one area you'd probably say, have they been tried to their full potential? Probably not. Like, I know Claire at various stages asked questions. Tipperary really, they never got going to the same effect to ask serious questions. And I think Waterford, while they had a Herculean kind of effort out the field, especially in that middle third, and certainly choked Limerick to a large extent, I don't think Desi Hutchinson ever got that kind of supply of ball that he was going to do serious damage. So I think, by and large, our full back line were probably not challenged. But I think that's where the semi-final against Galway is going to be a completely different game. I think they'll certainly have targeted a relatively inexperienced full back line. Now, look, Dan Morrissey has played in the full back line in the past. It wouldn't be his preferred position, nor would it be Barry Nash's. preferred position. So from that point of view, it is very much a specific art form, defending in the full back line, even allowing for the current, the way the current game is going. So I think that's maybe an area that Galway will look upon Limerick as being maybe slightly vulnerable. But again, I would say pound for pound, across the board, I think Limerick have very, very strong players, and I think collectively, and I keep on going back to that kind of collective as opposed to the individual. I think they're very, very hard to break down. The fact that they get there, you've heard this 1,000 times before, their half forwards are going to go deep, their midfield will go deep, and they'll make it very difficult for teams to penetrate them. They've conceded, I don't know, 2 goals against Tipperary, I think was that the extent of it so far, maybe. So that's a very, very good hit rate. But I think Galway really will have to score goals against Limerick to really put it up to them this weekend.
Yeah. So just about Galway, have you been impressed with them in their games? They beat Wexford by 13 points very well. I felt they created an awful lot against Kilkenny, but never put Kilkenny away, and then they were able to get those 2 goals and turn it around. Then against Tipperary, it was a bit of a dogfight, 2 maybe jaded teams to some degree. Have you been impressed overall with Galway this year, or is it up and down?
Yeah, definitely. And again, going back to pre-COVID, I saw Galway playing in Limerick this year, and it was very much a damn squib. I think they put up a token resistance to Limerick in the league, but I suppose like everyone else did, one eye in the championship. Now, to be fair, you'd have to acknowledge the fact that there was a new management. They had a panel of 50 odd players in with them at that stage, so they were very much in the kind of getting to know you phase, both from a management point of view and from a player point of view. But fast forward onto the Wexford game, and I think what I liked about Galway, to answer your question, I've been hugely impressed with Galway. I personally like the way Galway play anyway. They have a very direct style. They can mix it up. They've got great ball players. They've got height. They've got athleticism. And I think for no other reason other than, look, they probably just got caught obviously last year again against Dublin. So there's certainly, like Limerick, they're out to redeem themselves. But I just think there's been an edge to their play. Certainly against Wexford, they were convincing winners against Wexford. I think they look back in the Kilkenny game, certainly, and rue maybe the missed chances that they had, and maybe that drop in concentration that they had. But for those two goals critically at the tail end of that match, and I think maybe that was in certain parts maybe a lack of experience. And maybe just a drop in concentration. But I think other than that, they've been pretty flawless. Now, I did feel, and you just mentioned it there earlier on, that they did look jaded. I felt maybe with 10, 15 minutes to go that Tip were starting to get the upper hand at that point, and I thought, Galway were very wasteful in the final quarter there. But look, in fairness, Aidan Hart stepped up, an experienced player, and for now, while he's an out-and-out maybe half-back with Galway, we know him as a half-back. I know he plays centre forward, but he's Club Gart. So, he showed up, and I think that, clearly was the change in momentum. And I think, they really got confidence from that. But I just felt maybe at certain points in the Kilkenny game and certain points in the Tipperary game, they just, they wobbled a little bit, you know what I mean? So, they can't afford that wobble against Limerick, because if they do, this Limerick team are going to punish them.
It's a funny little side plot to it that Shane O'Neill, and a Piercing man, former Limerick player, is manager of Galway against Limerick. Now, I was talking to Will O'Donoghue today in an interview with him, and he was saying he wouldn't care if Shane was playing. It wouldn't matter to him at all. But what would your experiences of Shane been? Would you have played against him at club? I presume you were on the panel at some stage together, or maybe it wasn't the same years.
Yeah, well, I suppose on a personal level, I'd be very friendly with Shane and with John Fitzgerald, his coach. So we would have gone to school. Shane went to Ard Scull. He was about 2 years ahead of me in Ard Scull, so we would have obviously heard a lot of underage with one another in schools and against one another. Then his club in the Piercing would have been very prominent at underage, and would have been starting to come to prominence at senior level. So we'd have had a lot of battles. But yeah, Shane was on the panel when I came in first in 1997. And I think, look, anyone who knows Shane will tell you, first and foremost, outwardly, he is an absolute gentleman, very, very well got. I think and this is the best, I suppose, testament to his personality. He's a completely different man inside the four lines, while he's very composed, and always seems to be in control. I think there's a deep down hunger and aggression there, and a real want to do well. Like, he wasn't just successful as a hurler with Na Piarsaigh, he was successful as an underage coach there. Probably a lot would say that he was the architect of their transitional success, I suppose, to senior, because he had all those teams in under 21. So, like, Shane has huge belief in his own ability as a manager. I think he's a very, very cool customer. He's been around the block a while too. Like, you know what I mean? He's seen good days and bad days with Na Piarsaigh as well. He's been involved with Nina last year, not a million miles away from yourself. And as has John Fitzgerald. Like, so like John himself would be obviously friendly on a personal level. Like, but I think, look, Shane, I think when he gets off the bus on going into Crow Park, he'll park up any thoughts of Limerick. Like, it'll be he'll want more than anything else to get Galway to an All-Ireland final. He's a very, very ambitious guy, both professionally and hurling sense as well. Like, so he'll have all his bases covered, and if anything, he'll know more about these Limerick players than probably a lot of them know about themselves as well. Like, so he'll have a huge advantage from that point of view. Like, but look, as you can see, even you can hear it in his interviews afterwards, he's very, very level-headed. Never gets too emotional. Very well able to control his emotions. But I think he will be very clear and explicit in his instructions to those Galway players. Come that semi-final, like, he'll have all his bases covered. And I think John Kiley and his backroom team will be well aware of that like, they'll be up against it on the line.
And would you be looking forward to any matchups in particular? One that really jumps out to me is, I would imagine Sean Finn will be picking up Conor Whelan.
Yeah, well, to me, now, again, I would imagine Limerick are going to deploy a man marker on Conor Whelan, because I suppose the one thing that Sean Finn has that maybe Conor Whelan has exposed in other backs up to now is he's exceptionally strong. He's very, very quick. And he's just a sticky, old-fashioned cornerback. Like, so now they'll have had history from 2 years ago, no doubt. I'm sure their paths crossed. So yeah, that's I suppose the most mouth-watering one that you would look at the moment. I have to say, very impressed with Brian Concannon in the other corner. I'd imagine a lot of speculation there that there's going to be a rotating forward line as well. So, like, you can expect to see Conor Whelan a good bit out from goals. I don't expect him to be hanging around taking up Sean Finn, or Sean Finn isn't going to take him up for the entire game. I suppose, yeah, in terms of other matchups there as well, who knows what way the personnel. I think for me the midfield battle is going to be huge. Like you mentioned, Will O'Donoghue, who I think he's been massive for Limerick, as he has been. He was a huge driving force with his own club. I think very interesting to see what way they'll pick up one another there. Will Johnny Cohen pick up potentially Cian Lynch? You don't know what way that's going to go either. Again, the half forward line as well. I've been impressed with maybe Joseph Cooney in his kind of Roman role. So, like, Limerick are going to have to, like, I suppose it's less about the personal battles, because, as you know now, Shane, I don't think anyone marks anyone anymore. You know what I mean? So, like, I couldn't tell you who's marking who. You might be on him momentarily, but games now are like, who can score the most, like, but it's like no one seems to pick up any. A back now could have a good game and his man could score 5 points off him. So, like, do you know what I mean? It's a completely different game from that point of view. But I suppose what's intriguing to me is who's going to win those tactical battles, because games now are so tactical, and Limerick have a very set style. It's been well documented. And I think that, to me, is what I'm looking forward to most. Is, like, Waterford certainly asked questions of Limerick the last day, because a lot has been made of Limerick's style and how it's practically impossible to play against. And I think Waterford, above anything else, proved that if you get in Limerick's faces, as did Cork, Tip and Kilkenny last year. Like, let's not forget, people said Limerick should have won the All-Ireland last year. Like, Limerick lost 3 times last year as well. So, like, let's not forget that. But I think the common denominator in all occasions were that opposition was very much in Limerick's face, nullified them, choked them with that oxygen that they get in that middle third. And I think Galway, as I said, above anyone else, are capable of doing that. Now, can they sustain that for 75 minutes? To me, is going to be the big question, because at some point, maybe in the third quarter or coming down the stretch, Limerick are going to put on the gas. They're going to empty the bench, and that's going to be the real challenge for Galway. Like, do they have the personnel, and will they have the fitness to kind of live with that in a big open pitch like Croke Park? Because that is going to suit Limerick, in my opinion.
And do you see this going the way of Limerick?
Look, naturally, watching the way Limerick have played, of course, like I suppose wearing the heart and the sleeve first. I think it's going to take a huge performance from Galway to win it. But I certainly wouldn't go along that this will be, kind of Limericks to lose and it'll be a foregone conclusion. Far from it. I think Galway have unfinished business from 2 years ago as well. But yeah, I do think it's going to come down the stretch. I think it'll be very, very tight. I have to say, on a personal level, Galway to me have been the most impressive team. Now, Waterford have been very, very good, but I'm just not sure are they quite at that stage of their development yet. Kilkenny, you know what I mean, as we found out to our detriment last year. But I do think this Galway team, there's a lot of them probably at the tail end of their career as well. So I think there'll be a huge push to this one more especially, and I just think they've got momentum going as well. I think Limerick will have been taken aback a little bit by maybe the performance against Waterford. Hopefully it'll be a positive, but yeah, look, I still see Limerick winning it, but I think it's going to be one score.
And then just a quick word on the Kilkenny against Waterford game. Kilkenny have obviously had that extra week, the same way that Limerick have, and Waterford coming back off losing to Limerick and putting in a massive effort and getting probably fairly close. They probably expected to win the game. You don't go in not expecting to win a game. Losing that, putting up a huge score against Clare. Do you think Waterford could actually do it here, or do you feel like ultimately Limerick or Kilkenny tend to win these sort of games?
No, absolutely. Look, to be honest with you, I think both semi-finals are going to be very, very even. I think there's a pride or a quiet confidence certainly building up in Waterford. As the Limerick game for them, I think was Cork. They absolutely blew Cork out of the water. Should have beaten Cork by more. But even the Limerick performance, like to get up to that level of performance, given that you have a new management, a lot of new players coming in, like I think that will have instilled huge confidence in them and did what they had to do. Racked up. You probably know the score there, Shane. 3-3-7 or so, was it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Against Clare, and now again had a couple of wobbles as well, but I think that they will feel that they've got the ammunition to beat Kilkenny. To be honest, I thought Kilkenny were second fiddle for a lot of the Galway game. I thought Galway were the stronger team, but Kilkenny have this unknown quality that no other team will ever probably possess, and that's this ability to strike even when their momentum is going away from them. And even take TJ Reid's performance, he was subdued for a lot of it because he was very well chaperoned, but next thing Richie Hogan scores that goal, and all of a sudden then it just kickstarts them into life, and that's I suppose the one element that Kilkenny will always bring to a game. I would have I'd be leaning towards Waterford maybe on that one, because I just feel that again a wide open pitch like that, like their style, they've so many athletic players, not that Kilkenny don't, but I think just their sheer athleticism, and they will I think they're certainly progressing on. I think they'll have learned a lot from the Clare game, and I think it's set up for them, to be honest with you, to win to win against Kilkenny.
Yeah, because I'd say any Waterford supporter who heard me teeing that up would probably be, and saying that Kilkenny tend to win these, would say to me, well, the last time they met in the championship 3 years ago, Waterford won after extra time, but that was their first win against Kilkenny in 58 years in the championship. Now, when I spoke with Stephen Bennett earlier, he was saying that Liam Cahill has brought in this thing about turning and going at goal constantly, that there's no sort of going left and right, that he wants to go straight through the front door. And their scoring rate has jumped up this year. Like their average score is like 29 points in the championship. Like, can you turn around from not winning championship games for 2 years to all of a sudden, feeling like you can get into an All-Ireland final?
Well, absolutely. Like ourselves. At times we went years without winning championship, and next thing then you get that little bit of momentum. Like it's not that they're a poor team. I think they've been in transition. They probably came at the end of the Derek McGrath era when probably they were just after reaching the end of the line. I thought Patrick Fanning was unlucky in that I don't feel he got the buy-in he deserved from a lot of players, and often in Waterford it's the outsider seems to work the miracle better than the insider. But I think Liam Cahill has, as you well know, as a Tipperary man, he had proven pedigree at minor under 21 level. Again, not too dissimilar to Shane O'Neill, is a proven winner. Like a very, very confident. He was, fine and confident and aggressive as a player as well. And I think definitely he's complemented very well with Mikey Beavens. But like, funny you just mentioned that as well about their goals. Like, and I certainly feel a lot of teams, probably with the exception of Kilkenny, don't back themselves enough. Like, but you knew they smelled blood early against Clare. Like, in fairness to Stephen Bennett like he just turned and went at it. He only had a goal in his mind. I think that a little bit of killer instinct. Like, teams nowadays, in my book, don't take on the man enough, especially when you've got pace and you've got the strength and you've got the hurling to get past fellas. I'd even say there was times in the Cork game when they could have done it more. Not so much maybe the Limerick game or whatever, but certainly the Clare game, they were very, very aggressive. And again, maybe they'll target a couple of the Kilkenny guys and say maybe look, there's question marks maybe about their mobility in that back unit. So I would expect them to they're running very hard. Like what I have to say I like about Galway, about Waterford rather, is I just felt maybe that in certainly the Derek McGrath years, I think they'd set up almost too defensively. At times there was only one man up front, whereas this approach, they're still getting the bodies behind the ball, but when they counter, they're countering at pace, but they're also mixing it up. Like, they're getting good quality ball into their scoring forwards. And I think that was the key to me. I think at times it was almost too defensive, which was very hard to play against and was successful to a point. But I just feel ultimately, they were never going to progress. But this approach that they have now, there's an awful lot more aggression in that forward unit. They're backing themselves. They're not the biggest unit in the world, so they have to kind of rely on natural pace. Like, but look, Davy Hutchinson as well. The last day, I thought he was brilliant. My man of the match, to be fair. You know what I mean? I thought he was really a handful. And again, he's a fella now who just has come up to speed at intercounty level very quickly. Like, so. He's going to look to take on Kilkenny on the weekend as well.
And you obviously played in the forwards and the backs over the years. Do you like seeing Austin Gleeson up towards full forward and maybe Roman? Well, he'd obviously switch in positions at times, but do you like seeing him up in full forward?
Like, to be fair, and lads from Waterford will know his optimum position better than what I know. Like, but as a neutral, I just always felt that half forward role will give him way more freedom, and I think look, to be fair, I know he's kind of alternating between full forward, half forward. Again, as I said to you, Shane, I don't know who plays where anymore, because I think it's kind of like it's like we're playing the back garden, like kind of go wherever you want to go now, and that seems to be the general rule, and pick up good positions, which in one way I suppose is very difficult for the spectator to follow, but as a player it's great. Like, and if you can get momentum going. But I think from Austin's point of view, there's definitely been a marked pickup in his performances, but not maybe just his performances in terms of his outputs, right? So his scoring is starting to come back up to where we'd expect it to be. But I think really it's his work rate, and I think that's really been, like, even physically, to look at him, like he's in fantastic shape as well. And I think psychologically as well, he knows now that he's got the gas to pick up the positions or get into the positions that maybe he wasn't doing, but he's doing the bread and butter more. If I was to have a criticism, and people's general criticism of Austin Gleeson was that he just didn't give the impression that he was working hard enough for the team. But I think now he's rolling his sleeves up. He knows that it can't all be about Austin. I think if anything, that Waterford team now, the engine room there is definitely that kind of axis of De Burka, of Jamie Byrne, and probably himself now, like, you know what I mean. So it's the three of them really, and obviously Desi Hutchinson as well, like, you know what I mean. So like these are all guys now that are the fulcrum of that Waterford team. But I think Austin knows, look, I've got to roll up my sleeves, do the dirty work, do the spade work, and then, you know, if I get my 2 or 3 points, like, you know, he scored some sublime points against Clare, and I think he came off out of pure exhaustion, like, so I think definitely they're starting to get far more out of him. But I think he's buying into. I've no doubt he was taken aside and told, look, Austin, it's either you buy into what we're doing, or you won't be here, you'll be outside looking in, you know what I mean, which I think he's definitely taken on in a huge way.
Yeah, and then I suppose just the final question, you've been very good with your time. Like, in a game that's finally poised like this, I see this been really tight. I always tend to lean towards the side that has TJ Reid, because he produced a bit of magic or something. But just to get your final prediction on it.
Yeah, so like, again, I'll be shot now because I'm married to a Waterford woman, like, so it can only be one way. And I know, look, there's Kilkenny and Waterford has a rivalry all of its own. You mentioned Waterford finally breaking that hoodoo, but I think again, psychologically they won't have any fear of Kilkenny. Like, that hoodoo is broken. Look, I just feel that they are the team with the most momentum. I think they got what they needed to get out of the Clare game. They won emphatically, but they had to really dig deep, maybe during that middle of the second half. Okay, there will be a question mark about their fitness naturally, because, you know, this is their third week out of 4 or whatever, like, so, you know, there's a lot of fatigue maybe in the muscles. But I think they're going to get it. You know, the Cardiff and All-Ireland final, I think adrenaline is going to take them over the line, and I just feel that it's theirs. I have a sneaking suspicion for Waterford. Again, I think it's going to be one score in either in both semi-finals.
Brilliant stuff, Ollie. Really appreciate you joining me.
Waterford
Limerick, yeah, repeated the Munster final. Brilliant stuff, Ollie. Really appreciate you joining me.
No bother at all, Shane. Take care.